Hello and welcome to the Human Echoes recap for Channel Zero No End House. This is the second season of Sci-Fi's creepypasta adaptations, the first one being Candle Cove, and now we're hitting No End House, which I gotta say, the source material, I like Candle Cove a lot, and I liked some of what they did with the adaptation. I think that No End House is a stronger story, and I have more hope that this one is going to be great than I did for Candle Cove. Candle Cove ended up disappointing me a little bit. This one has some serious potential, though. The episode opens with a neighborhood that looks almost like a normal neighborhood. It's super clean and super nice, and there's something about the houses that just feels a little bit off. They're just too empty. They look like they might just be shells built around that aren't real houses. I know I'm projecting because I've seen the show and it built this creepy image in my head, but that's what I got from this opening. It's just that all of these two perfect houses with their two perfect lawns, and this girl stumbles out of one of them into the street. Very similar to the opening of It Follows. Not quite with the single long tracking shot following her all the way around, but very much reminiscent of that. And at the end of this street of very perfect, way too normal houses, there's a different house. It's almost a caricature of a house. It's like what a child with only a black crayon would draw if they were asked to draw a house, and then somebody built that in real life. It's the titular No End House. And for some reason, this girl is determined to get to this thing. Even though obviously it's the most creepy thing on the street, she's got to get there. We don't understand what's going on because it's a cold open. That's how those work, guys. And she starts running towards this thing, and somebody in the neighborhood, this man, starts running after her, chasing her down. And she runs and she runs and she runs, and she gets almost to the doorstep of the No End House. And this guy tackles her and drags her back into the neighborhood. And we see written on her arm the words, "This isn't real." We then get into the meat of the episode. We start to meet our actual characters. And the way we do this is we get this family video of our main character as a little girl, Margot. She's playing the piano. She's hanging out with her dad, jumping in the pool. But this is not explicitly spelled out at any point in the episode, but I feel like they're leaning really heavily towards just the way that this is edited, and some of the stuff that's included gave me a very creepy vibe towards the dad. I will say that. I can't say definitively that something's going on there, but my suspicion is, and I get to make the theories because I'm doing the recap, that there was some kind of abuse there from the dad to the daughter. The creepy music that plays over his face is a really heavy indication of that. The fact that the editing just goes crazy at some point, I think, is a pretty clear indication. I mean, granted, it is also trying to ramp up tension for the show as a whole, so we have to take that into account. But that's a separate. I think that those two can be together. And then there is this motif that's introduced here and repeated heavily throughout the episode of flowers. Flowers opening up, right? So you've got your sort of very standard feminine imagery happening, juxtaposed with this guy's creepy face. And I did not look up this actor's name. I forget. I know that he played the Zodiac Killer, or the most likely suspect for the Zodiac Killer in the movie Zodiac. I can't imagine what it must be like to have this guy's life where your face just looks like a creep. Like, that's the role that you get. Or even if you... Let's assume that I'm completely off base here and he's not supposed to be that. In that case, it's even worse because you're just playing a normal dad and everybody assumes that you're a creep because that's what you look like. There's not like a set template, okay? Like, child molesters don't look like anything in particular other than human. But for some reason we have the stereotype in our head, and he is that stereotype. And the sort of opening there with this family video cuts out, and we get to Margot, all grown up, living what seems like a relatively normal life. She has a friend come home, Jules, I believe she said her name was, and she gets invited to a party. And along the way, we find out that Margot's dad is dead, has been for a year now, and in this moment where they're both sunbathing out by the pool, in the sort of, I love the way the color worked in this. You have these two girls, they're out by the pool, they're in their bikinis, they're sunbathing, but it's not like, you can tell it's not really summer. They're trying to relive some moments in the past that isn't there now. It's sort of bleak. It's not good bathing suit weather for them to be out there, or at least it doesn't look like it. But they're still out there anyway, trying to catch some rays. And as they're out by the pool, they see this video of this just weird series of images all morphing into one another. I think there is some flower imagery in this video as well. There's a house, there's some faces in there, and it all kind of just plays. It's a relatively quick video that they both get on their phones. They look at, they're like, that's weird, let's go swimming. And they later go to a party. Jules drags Margot out. She knows she needs human contact. Margot has been sort of shuttered away of her own free will, kind of not willing to go out and communicate and contact with people. And they end up at this party. They meet some guys. They're sort of very standard banter. Margot spends a lot of time talking about her nightmares, which a little of that comes into play later when they're in the No End house, but it's really just getting to know you stuff and setting up these characters so we can care about them a little bit before they get into the horror part of the show. But one of the guys at the party knows about this video that they've got. He knows what the No End house is. He's a fan, apparently, although he's never been. And he's all psyched about it because I guess he got one of these videos too. And he says that, it's this very secretive thing. It tells them all the rumors about how horrifying it's supposed to be and how people have they go in and they don't come out if they make it to the last room and all this stuff. And plays it off kind of like you would, right? Because in the real world, this is a viral marketing campaign of some kind. Obviously, you want to make your haunted house sound as scary as possible. So you're going to tell people that someone died in there or whatever so that you just really get that draw of, I want to go see where I'm not going to die because I'm brave. That kind of draw. And they end up going to the No End house. And they meet some other people there. It's almost like a pilgrimage. It's just interesting. I mean, there's people parked on the street outside of this very weird house. It's the same house that we saw in the cold open, although at night. Somehow less creepy at night. I gotta say, like, the fact, like, when it's nighttime and it's trying to be a haunted house, and at least they think it's a haunted house, you think, okay, this is kind of normal. When it teleports itself to the end of a block where it's just full daylight and nothing else around it that makes it look like a haunted house, in those settings, the No End house is, like, menacing. Here, the exterior is just, like, it's no big deal. They meet people who are coming out of the No End house who are just shell-shocked, like, eyes bloodshot, like, horrified at what they've seen. And again, you just assume, hey, those people are probably paid actors, really trying to get our juices going, like amp us up. And one guy they meet outside the house is clearly not from around here. He's got a backpack on, and they ask him how he got there, what his business is, and he says, I've been looking for this thing. Obviously, this guy has some background with the No End house. He's been in before, or he is in, as we'll find out. Like, you don't really get out of the No End house, maybe. And he's looking to confront this thing for one reason or another. He knows what he's going to find. He knows how dangerous it is, but he's going in anyway. And I love that. I love that with every fiber of my being. You have no idea how awesome that is, that you have a character that's just charging in like this. And they go in, this group of people, which is, I would say, the first. There's a couple of important changes from the creepypasta. All right, the first, most obvious one is the number of rooms. In the creepypasta, it's 9 rooms. In the TV show, it's said to be 10 rooms. I'm sorry, 6 rooms. So there's fewer rooms. And the other thing is, in the creepypasta, it was a guy named David who goes through by himself. And in the TV show, at least initially, this group of friends is all together kind of experiencing it like you would experience a haunted house. I don't know anybody who's like, well, the haunted house is in town, I'm going to go by myself and just experience the horror. Maybe there is. I'm not trying to shame that person. I mean, I'm a guy who goes and watches movies by myself. And I know people think that's weird, but I do because, you know, babysitters are a hard thing to get, so I can't always go with my wife. So that's the other difference, and I like how it lets them bounce off of each other and have a little bit of protection, let's say, in the first few rooms. They get into the first room, they find these molds of all of their faces, and the lights go out, and then the lights come back on, and the heads are cracked in half, and like hands pulling them apart, except for one guy whose head is not cracked for some reason. I didn't pick up on why that happened. If you did, let me know. I'd love to, drop it in the comments. I tried to like notice, but it didn't click for me. Maybe I need a rewatch, or maybe it's something that's going to come up later. And there, right at the beginning, one of the girls just nopes out. Not one of the main characters, but one of the people who just sort of wandered in with them. She says, "I'm out, exit, bye." She gets creeped out. Can't reconcile the fact that they have molds of their faces in this room, and that like all this stuff is happening, and I would be creeped out too. Everybody else just kind of like deals with it. Like, okay, it's creepy. Yay, they're really good at this. We're going to get our money's worth. We don't actually see them pay any money. Another important difference, I would say, from the creepypasta is that if you got through No End House in the original story, you got paid $500, which was the whole impetus to keep going. Here it's just curiosity and not being able to get out. Second room it looks kind of like the bottom of a pool. I don't think it's literally the bottom of a pool, but that's what it reminded me of. It seemed like the bottom, like if you have an empty pool, and the way that sort of the walls look a little bit mildewy, and they're blue because you want to have blue walls for your pool to let the water look blue, and there was tile on the floor, and then there was those lights in the ceiling that seemed like pool lights. Again, I think probably not literally a pool, but pool-like enough where it made me think of all the shots of Margot as a girl jumping in the pool, Margot and her friend sunbathing by the pool, jumping in the pool. Like, clearly there's some operator happening there. The lights go out, the lights come back on, and we get this guy with a mask. And I'm trying to describe this mask. It's Babylonian is what I think of. I think of like the sort of image of Nebuchadnezzar, and the idea of his image that he built of himself, right, in the Bible, and the way that's always represented in pictures. It reminded me of like almost a demonic version of that. It's all black. It's like there's not exactly any eye lines, but the shape of it, and there's kind of almost like a beard portion of the mask that comes down, and it was just, it was really interesting. Walks around, like one of the guys, in the group pushes him. The lights go out again. Somebody disappears with a blood splatter leading across the pool to the wall, and also the masked man disappears. And another girl says, "Nope, I'm out. I'm done. Whatever this is gone. I'm gone." And the guy with the backpack says to him, "Listen, you guys should leave too. It's not too late." Again, telling us that he knows something about this whole deal. They don't leave, but they do get split up. And Margot ends up in a very long hallway with some orchids, because symbolism! And there's a mirror near the end of the hallway, which I did not recollect exactly what she said about her nightmare, but this, I believe, is very similar to what she said she has nightmares about to the guy at the party. And she goes up to the mirror. You can see that there's somebody behind it. There's like hands gripping the mirror from around the back of it. And here is the point where the dread for me really started to build. The tone of this had been excellent all the way through, and the first two rooms were kind of creepy, but not so you can't handle it. But here they start ratcheting up that tension. And as she looks around this backside of the mirror, she sees this guy, this grinning, balding, kind of overweight dude. I know it's not like me, okay? different guy. And he just kind of like has this creepy grin on his face. He doesn't say anything, but he's coming after her. Right? That dynamic, she just like starts running, noping out of there as he's chasing her down. Gets into another room, looks like an attic. Except for one of the walls is just a giant triangular view screen, and there's another. It's like a video with her dad kind of in it, a little bit of that weird editing that we saw in the promotional video that the No End House runs for itself. And she again is horrified by this room, runs out of it, and in the fifth room, she's in a familiar setting because her dad died. We established that, but when he died, she had come home late. She had found his body sitting in the couch with the television on. And now here she comes into this room where there's, again, not exactly her dad, but a bald, sort of clay-shaped head that looks like her dad, and a whole clay figure sitting in a bed, in a chair, watching television in complete stillness. And of course she's freaked out. She walks up to the television screen, and it's that family video that was playing at the beginning, and it plays through once and it plays through twice, and then it starts to loop on a moment where her dad is playing Monster in the bathroom with a mustache made out of shaving cream, and he says, "Hello, Margaret. Hello, Margaret. Hello, Margaret." And that starts repeating over and over and over again. I don't know about y'all guys, but like just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. It was super creepy. It got to me, okay? I was on edge. It did an excellent job of building up that atmosphere. And of course, right? You know what's going to happen because she wants to turn the TV off. There's no buttons on the TV because TVs today, they have buttons, but they're hidden. And this is a spooky TV that's haunted. So she has to go and get the remote out of the clay man's hand. And as she reaches for it, anybody with any sense, you just know he's going to come to life and grab her hand, and he does, and it's still freaky because you knew it was going to happen and you didn't want to. He grabs her hand, she screams and goes through a door. We don't get to, I was not able to tell if it was an exit door or if it said 6 on it, but she ends up outside the house. And her friend is outside the house. And the 2 guys they came with and the guy with the backpack, they are nowhere to be seen. They sit in the car and wait for him all night long. And the editing here reminded me of the way Inception pointed out that editing in a movie, when you just cut from one scene to another, is a lot similar to the way that a dream can just jump from one thing to another without connective tissue, and you just sort of make the connections there. The way they edited this made you think about how they don't impress upon you the passage of time. It just feels like they're in this situation, and then they're walking along the street as the sun's coming up, and then just all of a sudden they're home and the sun is completely up and it's full daylight out. And that was really an interesting vibe. Just the way that was edited and cut together lets you know that they're not back to reality yet. I mean, we know, right, the title of this episode is "This Isn't Real." It's going to be stuff that's not real. It's the No End House. They went to the No End House, they got out. My wife was watching this with me. She said, "This is a short episode. That's it? They just go in and come out and that's the end of the series?" No. There's a lot more. They're still in the No End House is the big kicker here. Margot goes home. She goes into the kitchen. She goes upstairs. Partway upstairs, she hears somebody whistling. And she walks down and walks just slowly down. And who does she see but her dad sitting there grating cheese and whistling to himself. And he says to her, "Hey, Martian," which is their little pet name that they have between each other. And that's it. He's back alive. Again, obviously an illusion of some kind. But here's I read up on the original creepypasta because I wanted to have some insight into the show. I had read it a long time ago, but it had been a while. And the No End House in the original creepypasta, there's a theory out there, and like all art, you can't say this is what it's about for sure. because it's art, and you can interpret it a lot of different ways. But one of the interesting ways that I thought that someone interpreted it was that the No End House is this story about addiction. And the different rooms represent different types of things that you can be addicted to, leading all the way up until the final room where it's self-harm. And the reason it's the No End House is because you never fully get rid of an addiction. It stays with you, and you always have to keep looking over your shoulder, even if you think you've kicked it. I think they're going in a different direction thematically with this No End House. It's still a representative of something in the culture, but I think that the No End House in the TV series is going to be about the cycles of abuse that are perpetrated. The idea that people who are abused in some way as a child are much more likely to become aggressors as adults. The fact that Margot walks down the hallway and sees a mirror, sees herself in the mirror, but the man behind the mirror looks a lot like her dad physically. It's a different person. It's very evidently a different person, but he has the same kind of build. He has that same creepy face thing. He's got the balding. Like, I think that represents that in her mind, she's afraid, the thing that she's afraid of anyway, is that she's going to become the same kind of person her dad was, that she'll perpetrate this kind of thing on someone else. This is all assuming that I'm right about the dad being some kind of molester or child abuser. I could be way off, okay? But I got to put the pieces together somehow, and I think that I'm not stretching too far. And I really I enjoyed what it was doing, and I'm hoping. The thing for me with Channel Zero, the first season when we did Pirate Candle Cove, there's pirates in Candle Cove, was that the setup was really interesting, but the payouts of things later didn't really compel me. It just kind of stayed on the same note of, isn't this creepy, isn't this creepy, isn't this creepy, but the story didn't suck me in, and I'm wondering where they're going to go with this story, because I don't think I'm super interested in just 6 episodes of, and then another creepy thing happened, and then another creepy thing happened, and then another creepy thing happened. Like, there's got to be some unfolding and revealing and inter-character stuff, even if it's within this universe, like her and her friend fighting against whatever this force is together, trying to deal with stuff, meeting up with other people, possibly meeting up with Backpack Man again and getting more information. I don't know how they're going to play that out, and I don't think this whole series is a slam dunk for sure, but this first episode definitely hit the mark for me. Loved it, was scared by it, creeped out, all that jazz, and I thought it was very smart too. Not overly deep, and like, it wasn't impossible to appreciate if you didn't know everything about everything. Like, I recently saw Darren Aronofsky's Mother, and I love that movie. But you gotta, like, to get the references that it's making, you gotta have some base knowledge there. This, whether or not you buy into all the symbolism and the flowers and the, like, you know, the guy behind the mirror being her fear of what she is and all that stuff, it's still scary. You can still enjoy it on an entertainment level without all that stuff. So good start for Channel Zero No End House. I hope it keeps it up, man. I really do. And I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, click that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing hopefully more of these if something doesn't go wrong or whatever. And leave me your comments, because I'd love to know what you guys thought. Tell me if I'm off base. You're welcome to disagree. That's what the fun of fandom is. We can talk about things and figure out how it works. And I will see you guys next week with another one. Take care.